Good evening, everyone. Wow, this is pretty good. 8:13, that's a record, I think. Welcome, everyone. It's such a great honor to have all of you here tonight. Hey, guys, welcome. On behalf of Jill and myself, and Ezra, Abigail, and my nephew Josh, my brother Mayor Michael, and Amy, it's a real honor to be able to welcome you all. And I can't believe this. It's the 29th annual talk in memory of our mother, Ruth Wild's blessed memory, whose memorial this year, and please God, going forward, is going to be combined with our father's memorial. We're putting them together. Our dad's first yard site is going to be taking place in just 2 weeks. And this year, we have the incredible zechut, spiritual merit, to hear from my mentor and teacher, incredible scholar and inspiration to so many rabbis and laymen alike, Rabbi Dr. Jacob J. Schacter, who honors us with his presence this evening. No. We're nowhere near done. I want to also recognize the presence of my friend and board member Lee Waxman, another dear friend, MJ supporter, Shuki Grossman. Also, just to welcome a very dear friend, Beth Kobliner Shaw, who's here, who's a huge fan of Rabbi Schacter. And also want to welcome one of my parents' closest friends of many years, Joyce Whites, who I only learned when I was about 15 or 16 that we actually weren't related. It's one of those aunts, Aunt Joyce and Uncle Aaron of blessed memory. And thank you for being here. I want to also acknowledge Rabbi Ezra Cohn, who I want to thank for his tireless efforts on behalf of MJE. I want to recognize the presence of my dear friend and colleague, Rabbi Penny Rosenthal, who heads our senior fellowship program. Tachani Perlman, and where's Rabbi Jack? Rabbi Jack Hartstein. And Rifki and Dovi Siderson, and I want to welcome Rifki's parents that are here as well. They coordinate our one-on-one learning program in this room every week, and so many other incredible programs. Thank you also to Michal for your work on tonight and everything else here. I want to say, before I get to introduce Rabbi Schacter, just a brief word about our mother, Pesel Abigail Bat Menachem, in whose memory MG was established 26 years ago, and Avi Marie, my father, my teacher. Talmud actually says you're supposed to continue to refer to a father as your father and teacher even after his passing. Levi ben Avram Tzvi, in whose memory MGE will also now be dedicated. So in a week, we're going to be gathering around our menorahs to celebrate Hanukkah. And according to the Talmud, the ideal place for the menorah is not inside the home where we light it. The ideal place for the menorah, and where our sages originally instituted the menorah to be lit, was outside of our homes. Specifically, near the door entrance, outside of the home, opposite the mezuzah. And in this way, the sages taught that when we enter our home, we're surrounded by mitzvot. We have the mezuzah coming into the home on the right, and the menorah on the left. And when it became too dangerous or impractical to put our menorahs on the outside, the positioning of the menorah was changed, and hence the custom we have today of placing our menorahs inside. But what was the reason that the sages wanted our menorahs outside? And by the way, if you can do that, if you can get away with it here in New York City, it's actually better. They do it in Israel. In a lot of homes, they'll put it outside. But the reason is because of Pirsumei Nisa, that the mitzvah of lighting the menorahs to publicize the event to the outside world, to project the miracle of Hanukkah. And that's the function of menorah. It's not to illuminate our homes, it's to share some of that Torah illumination for the world. Contrast that to what it's on the opposite side, and that's the mezuzah. What's the mezuzah about? The mezuzah always leans inward when you come into the home. And the mezuzah, according to the Rambam, the great Maimonides, when you enter a home and you see a mezuzah, it's supposed to remind you of Hashem's love for you. It wakes us up to what's truly important in life, and it's a reminder that we're entering a home filled with Torah values. And so while the menorah prompts us to illuminate the world on the outside, the mezuzah reminds us to do what we need to do on the inside to create that kind of home. And my brother and I were truly blessed to be raised in a home, to have parents who really exemplified this balance. They had such a great yin and yang when it came to this particular issue of projecting outside and creating something special within. Our mother, of blessed memory, was all about the internal. She was all about creating that love and that warmth and that spirituality within our home. She cared, of course, about other people. She was involved in the community, outside of our home. But her main focus was building our family. Whether it was the big things, cultivating her children's midot, qualities, character traits. She took that very seriously, encouraging our father, of blessed memory, to study with us. She always wanted what we were learning in school to be reinforced at home. Or the little things, the chocolate cake with the icing she knew I loved, the apple pies that my brother was obsessed with. We're very nostalgic in our family. We still have the little yellow posted notes with her smiley faces, a little "Have a nice day," "I love you." She created such light in our home. And our dad taught us how to share that light with those on the outside. His life was devoted to helping other people. Many of you know he was an immigration lawyer. Brother continues his legacy. He spent his life bringing others to this great country. And he was devoted to Jewish communal needs. He loved people from all over. And he drew tremendous inspiration at making other people feel at home. And I really believe that's why he adored this place. Yeah, his son was kind of involved in it, so he didn't have much of a choice. But he was very invested here. It pained him when he would meet somebody who was so disconnected. He would call me sometimes from the office, and he would say, "I have somebody sitting here. He's 25, young woman, she's 27." And they came for an immigration consult. They didn't come for a spiritual lesson or to be referred to some rabbi. But he was actually very good on the referrals, I will say. He didn't really make much on them, but he loved showing the beauty of Torah, of Shabbat. He loved making others feel at home. Before I started MGE, when I was a rabbinical student, Forest Hills, Queens, where I'm from. So we had this beginner service, and it was my parents that hosted all the participants. I was single. I didn't have another home to bring them home to, so I used to schlep them to my parents' house. My mother's amazing cooking, her elegant Shabbat table, and to meet my father, who took a genuine interest in their lives. He was a real mentor. He mentored dozens of MGE participants over the years. And he was here Wednesday nights all the time. He was here on Shabbos with us, on the Chagim, on the holidays. I loved praying with him. And he helped me prepare countless sermons, and he was very, very devoted to this place, and he absolutely adored and admired our guest tonight, Rabbi Schacter. My father had such respect for your scholarship, and he was so grateful for you for everything that you did for me and for MJE. and how you remained our spiritual guide ever since. And often when I would ask my dad for advice, his first question was, did you ask Rabbi Schacter what he thinks? And many of you here may not be aware, but besides my father, MG really exists because of Rabbi Schacter. In 94, I got a call from Rabbi Schacter, who was the rabbi right here at the Jewish Center at the time. And he called to invite me to teach a basic Judaism class at the Jewish Center. And I was like, whoa, he's calling me. And I remember what you said, Rabbi. You said, my congregation is right here on West 86th Street. And there are so many young men and women living in the area who are not connected. And I want to have some kind of class for them. That call and that class, you said the word mamish, really changed my life. We put some flyers around. We took some ads in the local papers. It's called Judaism in the Contemporary World. It was an awesome group of people that came. It was really awesome. Jill was part of that group. That's actually how we met. So when I say I owe a lot to Rabbi Schacter, we didn't go out right after. I know what you're all thinking. We waited, whatever. It was the whole thing. It was right across the hall. And from that class began MJE. And ever since then, Rabbi Schacter, amidst his ridiculously crazy schedule of teaching, of writing, and just being there for so many other rabbis, he's always made the time to be there for me and for MJE. And so, Rabbi, whatever success that we have achieved these last 26 years, such a chelik in this. It is due to you. Okay, so here's the quick bio. It's not quick, but I'm going to make it very quick. Besides the countless hours that Rabbi Schacter is devoted to MJE, he is university professor of Jewish history and Jewish thought, senior scholar at the Center for the Jewish Future at Yeshiva University. In 2005, when he served as dean of the Rabbi Joseph B. Soloveitchik Institute in Boston. He was previously the first rabbi of the Young Israel of Sharon, Massachusetts, and then from 1981 to 2000 was the rabbi here at the Jewish Center, taking the congregation from 180 families to 600. People would come from all over to hear and to listen to him. Rabbi Schacter holds a PhD in Near Eastern languages from Harvard, received rabbinic ordination from Torah Vadas, very fine yeshiva. Rabbi Schacter was a teaching fellow at Harvard, director at YU's Torah Umada project, and an adjunct professor at Stern College for Women. He was awarded the prestigious Daniel Jeremy Silver Fellowship from Harvard and the Chelsea Grant from YU. Also serves as a faculty at the Wexner Foundation. He is the co-author of the award-winning A Modern Heretic and Traditional Community. When I give I give tours of the building because people don't have the patience for the elevator. So we walk down, I give a tour. I have to say who the founding rabbi was. I talk about Mordechai Kaplan. I speak about your book. It's like every Shabbos. You don't even realize. Anyway, he's also the author of The Lord is Righteous in All His Ways, Reflections on Tisha B'Av Keynote by Rabbi Soloveitchik, and has authored close to 100 scholarly articles and reviews in Hebrew and in English, besides editing many other important works and publications that I'm going to leave out. In my mind, though, Rabbi Schachter's godless, his greatness is his humility, his gentle caring for his many students, which I'm privileged to call myself, is my beloved Rabbi, and I am forever grateful for his guidance and for his love. Ladies and gentlemen, Rabbi Dr. Jacob J. Schacter.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you, Rabbi Wilds. My connection to you over all these almost 3 decades has been a huge blessing for me in my life. to be able to see what you've accomplished together with Jill. Where's Jill? Here's Jill. Okay, good. Jill, why don't you go sit next to Mark? Oh, yeah. Okay, that's much more important. Okay, I got it. To see what you have. Ezra, come sit. To see what you have accomplished over these years is unbelievably extraordinary. So thank you for inviting me. And I would say thank you for inviting me back. Because 29 years ago, I delivered the first Ruth Wilds Memorial Lecture in this maybe room, could have been in this room. So it took you 29 years to invite me back, which is okay. That's fine. You had other very distinguished people in between, but I'm happy to be back. Very happy to be back. I'm happy to be here in honor of your parents, who I knew. I remember your mom very well. There was an elegance and an understated sense of pride, the way she carried herself, the way she spoke, which was very visible, even though she didn't exude it. Your dad, of course I remember. Brilliance, a Feinkeit, a certain refinement, tremendous wisdom, tremendous commitment to Jewish life and to the community and to helping people. And they were both great parents. I think at the end of the day, and maybe think about this a little bit, at the end of the day, if we are blessed to have children, that's what we leave behind. The Rambam tells us that Avraham Avinu had an impact on alafim urevavos. Maimonides, in the Laws of Idolatry, chapter 1, presents a history of religion, and he tells us when he gets to Abraham, Achenit kaptzu elav alafim urevavot. There were thousands and tens of thousands of people who gathered around him. And my question always is, so what happened to them? Where did they go? Talk about outreach. No one ever in the history of humanity had as successful an outreach program. Thousands and tens of thousands, plural, tens of thousands of people. So where did they go? Parshas Vayera, Chayesara, Toldos, Vayetze, Vayishlach, the whole rest of Genesis. What was the ultimate eternity of Avraham? Ki beyitzchak yikare l'chazara. It was in his child. So we spend a lot of time invested in the world, but I think we need to spend a lot of time with our families. And your parents, you talked about your mom in particular, but your dad also, as a role model, was so powerful for you. And look, Baruch Hashem, Doros, generations. And that's a legacy, besides everything else. So it's an honor to be here. Le'ili Nishmas, in memory of Pesal, Avigail, Bas Menachem, Verezel. I asked Mark for your grandmother's name because I want to include the grandmothers too. Levi, Ben Avraham, Tzvi, Vesara. Zechronam Livracha. What I want to discuss with you this evening is something that I think a great deal about, and something that I think is important to think about for those on a journey in the space of traditional Jewish life. And I include myself in that journey. I've been on this journey for a very long time, and I'm still on this journey. It's something that I think about, that I take seriously, and do not take for granted. And I want to begin with the cultural moment in which we find ourselves, and in the cultural world in which you find yourselves. You don't do Jewish all day. You do Jewish Wednesday nights. You do Jewish, hopefully on a Shabbat morning, but the rest of the time you're living in American culture and in American society. And there's not a lot of Jewish going on. In fact, there's like the opposite sometimes of Jewish going on. And so I want to begin by rooting ourselves in the cultural moment and then try to make a case for engagement with traditional Jewish life. Now, it's not an all or nothing, as you know. We're in different stages of the continuum. The goal is to keep going, to keep moving, and not just to be stagnant. Sometimes we move backwards, and that happens too. And then we push ahead a little bit, and then we go back. What's the moment, the cultural moment, 2024 December, in which we find ourselves here in America? Because that's where you are, and that's where we are. First entry on the page. Do we have any extra sheets? Do we have any extras? There should be a pile, I think, outside. Anybody not have a copy of the handout? Please raise your hand. You have extras? There's a bunch. There's a pile there. If you don't have a copy, just raise your hand if you don't have a copy. Please make sure that everybody has a copy. Michael needs a copy. Anybody else not have a copy? Okay, Pastor, we need over here in the back, this way. Hold your hands up. We're going to... Jill, you need a copy. You're Naches, such Naches. Mazel Tov. So nice to see you again. Ezra is very special. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, over here. 1, 2, 3. We need 3. Two more. In 1985, Robert Bellah was one of the co-editors of a very important book that made great waves when the book was published. It's called Habits of the Heart, Individualism and Commitment in America. Beth, do you have a sheet? Okay, good. I'm taking care of you. I can't believe I'm seeing you. This is amazing. Okay. He writes as follows. First top half of page 1. Today, 1985, religion in America is as private and diverse as New England colonial religion was public and unified. Right? Colonial America, religion was everybody drank the same Kool-Aid. In America, in 1985, it's the opposite. One person we interviewed has actually named her religion. She calls it her faith after herself. This suggests a logical possibility of over 220 million American religions, one for each of us. So in 1985, the census in the United States showed 220 million people living in America. You may know that it wasn't that long ago that we broke in America the 300 million mark, which means that if the book was written now, the book would read, that is logical possibility, every single American, 310 million separate religions, because each one of us determines and defines our religion. This is a world of individualism. This is a world of I am the arbiter of my faith. I am the arbiter of my existence. I decide, you get out of my face. You are not going to tell me to do anything. I am going to make that decision. Sheila Larson is a young nurse who has received a good deal of therapy and who describes her faith as Sheilaism. Her name is Sheila. Sheilaism, quote, I believe in God. I'm not a religious fanatic. I can't remember the last time I went to church. My faith has carried me a long way. It's Sheilaism, just my own little voice. So she has a religion. She names her religion for herself. Imagine for a moment if her name was Judy. Thank you. But her name wasn't Judy. Her name was Sheila. And so we have Sheilaism. Sheila's faith has some tenets beyond belief in God, though not many. In defining my own Sheilaism, she said, it's just try to love yourself, be gentle with yourself, I guess take care of each other. I think he, and notice that he is capitalized here, But when she said it, she didn't say capital H. So he, she, it, whatever God is, would want us to take care of each other. Like many others, Sheila would be willing to endorse few more specific injunctions. When this book came out in 1985, Sheilaism became the code word for the American sociology of religion. Namely, everybody makes their own religion. Everybody has a right to make their own religion. We're living in a free country. It's a democracy. You're not going to tell me what to do. You can't force me to do anything. I will decide what I want to do. I will decide what I don't want to do. I will decide if I'm going to go to church, not going to go to church, when to go to church, how to go to church, start my own church. I can do anything I want. I mean, Baruch Hashem, Shechianu v'kiyamanu v'giyanu lazman hazeh, which means, thank God, we have reached this stage where we're not living in Tsarist Russia. I'm my own guy. I can do what I want. 320 million American religions, and this became the code word for the reality of contemporary America. A few years later, famous sociologist of religion wrote an article called Desperately Seeking Sheila. And in this article did a survey of 15 different religious denominations in the United States. About 12 of them were Protestant denominations, or we have Catholicism, so that's the Pope, we're good to go, that's one. And then Protestantism, you know there are many different denominations within Protestantism, and they had Islam and they had Judaism. And it turns out, in an article published in a religious review of religion, Jews are more Sheilaistic than any other religious tradition in America, which means that on the percentage, right, Jews were a very small number, but percentage-wise, there are more Jews who say, I will decide what Judaism means to me, than Muslims, than Episcopalians, than Lutherans, than Catholics say, I will decide what my religion means to me. So that means that we're living in a culture and in a society where we talked earlier about God. God, Shema, who knows about God? Mitzvahs, what? Torah, obligation. Mitzvah means, what does mitzvah mean? How do you define the word mitzvah? Mitzvah is not a good deed. Mitzvah does not mean a good deed. Mitzvah means a commandment. What? Commandments? America. What do you mean commandment? If there's a commandment, that means there's a commander with a big fat C, and there's a commandee with a little tiny c, and that's me. I'm commanded. I pay a lot of money in therapy not to feel like I'm being commanded. I want to be me. I want to express my me-ness. And it's a free country, and I can do that. Command me? Fair. Fair. It's America. Sheilaism. That's the world in which we live. That is the culture of the moment in 2024. I was born in America. I grew up in America. I went to fancy universities in America. And I am the product of Western American liberal culture. And I'm trying to be a traditional Jew. And I'm trying to submit myself to God's will. I'm trying to believe that God gave us the Torah, and so it means something to me. But I keep on butting up against the culture in which I was raised. And when I'm honest, it's a struggle. I'm not done. Because when I think I'm done, then all of a sudden I have another experience, or I bump into somebody that I went to graduate school with. And I'm brought back to crazy Harvard in the 70s. And I think, what's wrong with me? I mean, that person is like a nice person. Fair, they don't like to do this Shabbos thing. So what do I need this for? So I am trying to root us in the cultural moment and then make a case of why I do the Shabbos thing. In 2000, Stephen M. Cohen and Arnold M. Eisen published a book called The Jew Within: Self, Family, and Community in America, and essentially took Sheilaism and Robert Bellah book called Habits of the Heart and brought it into the Jewish community. And you'll tell me if this resonates with you. The principal authority for contemporary American Jews, Now it's 2000, 15 years later, but it's still almost 25 years ago. The principal authority for contemporary American Jews in the absence of compelling religious norms and communal loyalties. There is no such thing as compelling. Compelling sounds like obligation, it sounds like requirement, it sounds like commandment. There are no compelling religious norms in the culture in which we live or communal loyalties. So the principal authority is the sovereign self. What's a sovereign? A king. Who's the king? I'm the king. I am the king. I decide. Each person now performs the labor of fashioning his or her own self, pulling together elements from the various Jewish and non-Jewish repertoires available. We spend more time surrounded by non-Jews than we spend surrounded by Jews. We spend infinitely more time in a non-Jewish cultural ambiance than we do in a Jewish cultural ambiance. That's a fact. And so when we try to shape our own identities, we draw on all of our experiences, non-Jewish, general American culture, and Jewish, rather than stepping into an inescapable framework of identity, familial, communal, traditional, given at birth. There is nothing that's inescapable. I can escape from anything. Even the word escape makes no sense, because escape means that I bought into it, and then I'm escaping from it, but I never bought into it in the first place, because I do what I want. Today I like it, tomorrow I don't like it. Decisions about ritual observance and involvement in Jewish institutions are made and made again, considered and reconsidered year by year, and even week by week. American Jews speak of their lives and of their Jewish beliefs and commitments as a journey of ongoing questioning and development. They avoid the language of arrival. I haven't arrived, I'm on a journey. I don't arrive, I'm on a journey. And I'm continuing to be on a journey. So here's what we're up against. Those of us who feel that we want to sign on to this thing called traditional Judaism or mitzvah are pushing uphill. So what I want to do first is to name it and then to try to figure out how to deal with it. My last reference here is this cover on the left side of page 2 of a report that was published by Reboot. Reboot is a cutting edge, or used to be a cutting edge think tank in New York about what's going on in the contemporary American Jewish community. So the title, this is the cover page. Grande Soy Vanilla Latte with Cinnamon No Foam. Jewish Identity and Community in a Time of Unlimited Choices. Did you ever realize when you go into Starbucks how many choices you have? You go into Starbucks, so there's the thing up there, and then you choose a thing. And then you tell the person, I want this thing, but I want like a little bit of it, and then I want it to be mixed with something else, and I want a third thing put in, and then you know what happens? Amazing. You give money, and you get nothing. It's such a genius. You give money, and they don't give you anything. What happens? You have this emunah means belief, that when you go around to the side, at some point somebody's going to call your name and give you something. You have no idea if what's in there is what you asked for. You have no idea what you get, but you get something. And then it first starts, because then you go to the side, there's a table. And then you got 0.5% milk, 1% milk, 1.5% milk, 2% milk, and then you have a little vanilla, and then you got a little cinnamon. By the time you're done, you have thousands of choices. Thousands of choices. And it's amazing. That's the title of this study. Grande Soy Vanilla Latte with Cinnamon, No Foam, Jewish Identity and Community in a Time of Unlimited Choices. And there's a Starbucks cup. So you're familiar with the Starbucks cup that the person behind the thing takes it and checks off and scribbles something on it that you hope in Mitzvah Hashem should show up remotely resembling what it is that you wanted. And look what we have. We have kosher. That's a good thing. You want to check kosher, feel free. Family, activism, mikvah, Matisyahu. Did you ever hear of Matisyahu? He's not called Matisyahu anymore. He used to be called Matisyahu. He's called Matthew Miller. He used to be Matthew Miller. He became a Lubavitcher. And he put on a black hat, a big black hat, and black suit and a white shirt, and his tzitzis were hanging out of his jacket, and then he's done. And he's back to his previous ways. You like Matisyahu? That's great. Did you ever hear Matisyahu? I've tried to listen to Matisyahu. I don't understand a word. He's rapping, and the joke's on me, because he's a millionaire and Nichelig in prayer. Like, this guy is unbelievable. And I'm inviting you, when we're done, go Google Matthew Miller, Google Matisyahu, and the words, I can't figure it out. But you like that? That's great. Check him. Meditation. And what's the last one? Other. Other, nothing here rocked your boat. Other. And you notice the box for other is bigger than any other box, because you fill it in. This is where we are. So where do we go from here? And why is MJE so incredibly important? And why is MJE so, Baruch Hashem, incredibly successful? Pushing uphill against a cultural zeitgeist that is not supportive of a lot of the values, the teaching, the sensibilities, the humanity, the support for Israel, you name it, that goes on in the world around us. So I want to start with Robert Cover. Anybody ever hear the name? Robert Cover was a professor of legal jurisprudence at Yale University Law School. He grew up in Brookline, Massachusetts. He was a member of a conservative synagogue. He became a gadol, which means like a top guy in the field of legal jurisprudence. He died in his 40s, and he was unbelievable. And here we have a book that he published, Narrative Violence and the Law, and I want to start, Dafka, not a rabbi. I want to start from outside of the rabbinic tradition to make my case. When I am asked, fourth line, second paragraph, you notice the title of chapter 6, Obligation. Obligation, a Jewish jurisprudence of the social order. I want to make a case for obligation. End of line 4, second paragraph. When I am asked to reflect upon Judaism and human rights, therefore, the first thought that comes to mind is that the categories are wrong. I do not mean, of course, that basic ideas of human dignity and worth are not powerfully expressed in the Jewish legal and literary traditions. Of course they are. Of course, Jewish legal and literary traditions make a big deal about human dignity and human worth. Rather, writes Professor Robert Cover, I mean that because it is a legal tradition, Judaism has its own categories for expressing through law the worth and dignity of each human being. And the categories are not closely analogous to human rights. I have a right. Declaration of Independence, right. I have a right. Human beings are given, endowed with certain, what did they, third grade, inalienable rights. I have a right. Succumt mir. It comes to me because I have a right. No, that's not the Jewish way. The principal word in Jewish law, which occupies a place equivalent in evocative force to the American legal system's rights, is the word mitzvah, which literally means not good deed. A good deed, you know what? I did a good deed yesterday, I'm done. Yesterday I helped the old lady cross the street, today I'm too tired. Somebody else will do it, I'm done. You do a good deed, very nice. Tomorrow you don't want to do a good deed. I did 2 today, I did 1 tomorrow. That's not what a mitzvah is, which literally means commandment, but has a general meaning closer to incumbent obligation. And so my question is, how can we cultivate within ourselves, living as we are rooted in the world of Shilaism, how do we cultivate a sense of obligation? Because at the end of the day, I think that's really the crux of what it means to be engaged in traditional Jewish life, which means there's something bigger than me, which means there's something that I actually don't call the shots about. It's not up to me. I hate to say it to myself, but you know what? You're a big macher, but it's not up to you. You submit, you recognize that there's a higher authority that has a hold on you and deserves your respect and will shape your behavior. That's a big step for Americans coming into the world of traditional Judaism. It's a big step. It's totally different than what we're used to. The notion of submission is anathema in contemporary American culture. But Robert Cover teaches us that it's not about rights. I don't have a right. I have an obligation. You understand the difference between I have a right and I have an obligation. And my obligation is not just to be nice to other people, but to accept upon myself what I am coming over the course of time to believe is a God and God's will for me. Not for the Jewish people, but for me. What does God want from me? And what does that mean for my life? And what does it mean for my decisions about what I eat and where I go and who I marry, etc., etc. What does that mean for me? The way I get to this, and this is a personal odyssey for me, is to recognize the following. Jewish law and Jewish observance has two components to it. So for a long time, when I was growing up, this is what I was taught. I went to yeshivas. I grew up in an Orthodox family, and I've been drinking this Kool-Aid for a very long time. So I was told that I have to do mitzvahs properly. So I was told that when I hear the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, so I have to hear it for a certain length of seconds. The different sounds have a certain length of seconds. And if there's a hiccup in the middle, so you got to start again, and it's complicated. And I was taught that an etrog has to have a certain shape. It has to go up, and it can't have nicks on it, and can't have black dots on it. And I was taught that the Hanukkah candles, so you know what, you stick it in over here, but you start lighting over there. So that's interesting, right? You start here, but you start there. So it's all technical. And the technical is very important, because you don't fulfill the mitzvah, but you're not going to get a big fat check in the big fat book in the sky unless you do it right. And I had trouble with that, because it seemed very arbitrary and it seemed very technical. And I wasn't singing it. I was doing it. I was shaking it. I was holding it. I was eating it. Matzah on Pesach. You think you eat matzah on Pesach, you haven't begun. You got a line back there, and then you got this much, and then the guy who runs the Seder, you're begging him, not so much. You're giving me so much. Give me a little bit. You got the thing, and you got two of them, and then you got you're plotting, and got the moror, and you're lathering on the thing, and it's really important, and it is important, and I do it because I believe that I have to do it. But I wasn't singing it until I read this passage from Rabbi Joseph P. Soloveitchik, top left, page 3. Rabbi Soloveitchik was one of the great rabbis of the 20th century. I'm assuming we already determined that Rabbi Wilds refers sometimes to Rabbi Joseph P. Soloveitchik. And he gave a talk at the Shloshim, the 30th day after the passing of his Machatenista. Now I say Machatenista, and I'll tell you what that is, because there's no English word for this relationship. Machatenista is, my kid marries their kid. That makes me and that kid's parents, we're machutanim. So they're not in-laws. In-laws are my kid's parents. My daughter-in-law's, my son-in-law's parents. My in-laws are my spouse's parents. Right. You know the difference between in-laws and outlaws? Outlaws are wanted. Okay, I'm done. Okay, we love them. We love them dearly. Okay. You file that away when the time comes. Don't quote me, please. But this is not in-laws. This is not my spouse's parents. This is like my kids' spouse's parents. So in English, there's no such word. What does it tell you about American culture that relationship does not exist in American culture? In Yiddish, it's mechutanim. So Rabbi Soloveitchik had 3 children. His oldest was a daughter. She married Professor Tversky, Yitzchak Tversky, who was my teacher in graduate school. And Professor Tversky's mother died. 30 days later, he gives a talk. And here's what he says. I admit I'm not able, top left, page 3, to define precisely the Masoretic role of the Jewish mother. So he was all into defining things precisely, and he was all into Masoretic, means Masorah, which means Jewish tradition. I can't do this. I can't really define exactly what a Jewish mother is. Only by circumscription I hope to be able to explain it. Permit me to draw upon my own experiences. What experience did Rabbi Soloveitchik have of Jewish mothers? He had a Jewish mother. So he knows from Jewish mothers from his own mother. So he extrapolates from his own mother to the species called Jewish mothers. I used to have long conversations with my mother. In fact, it was a monologue rather than a dialogue. She talked and I happened to overhear. What did she talk about? I must use a halachic term, a Jewish legal term, in order to answer this question. She talked me inyana diyoma. Inyana diyoma means she talked about things that were going on in the world at that time. She was a worldly woman. She talked about relevant things going on. I used to watch her arranging the house in honor of a holiday. I used to see her recite prayers. I used to watch her recite the Sedra, the Torah portion, every Friday night, and I still remember the nostalgic tune. I learned from her very much, from his mother. Rabbi Soloveitchik was a great rabbi. He had a great father. He learned a ton of Talmud with his father, but he learned from his mother. Most of all, what did I learn from my mother? Most of all, I learned, and this is what's gotten me through my own religious journey, this sentence. Most of all, I learned that Judaism expresses itself not only in formal compliance with the law, but also in a living experience. I mean, it's really nice to shake the lulav and eat the matzah and twirl on the tefillin and go like this 7 times, 6 times, 4 times, whatever your family custom is on Friday afternoon, and then you cover your eyes and you light the candles. That's really important, but that's not the end of the story. That's the beginning of the story. The rest of the story is, what am I experiencing when I do this? Because it's not just a formal compliance with the law. There's a living experience here. I'm feeling something, or I aspire to feel something. She taught me, my mother taught me, that there's a flavor, a scent, and a warmth to mitzvahs. So that's a beautiful thing. And I don't always feel it, but I try to feel it. I try to ask myself, what's my experience now when I'm doing this act? I'm not just doing an act. I am doing an act, and I must do the act, and I must do the act in detail. But where does that place me in terms of my connection with God? I believe that God wants me to do this. It's in the Torah, or it's in rabbinic literature explaining the Torah. But I'm not a monkey, and I'm not a robot. A robot can also go like this in front of candles. And a monkey can also eat matzah. But that's not me. I'm a human being. So where do I bring my humanness into the mitzvah acts that I perform? I learned from her the most important thing in life. This is a very important sentence. If I were to ask you, actually I'm going to ask you, if you have a pen my students, I don't say pen anymore, I say take out your computer or something, but you're not here with computers. So when you get home, write down or type in the following sentence. The most important thing in life is. The most important thing in life is. And I want you to finish the sentence. I'm giving you an exercise. When you get home. The most important thing in life is. So if you ask me, I would say, I should have nachas for my kids. I should have good health. I'm getting a little bit older, more than a little bit. I should have good health. I should have parnasa. I should be able to have a livelihood. My kids shouldn't have to support me. People should think nicely of me. Israel should be safe. But there's a problem with that, because that's like 6 things too many. Because what I asked for is the most important thing in life is. So take a second and think. Each one of you, the most important thing in life is. And then when you answer that question, ask yourselves, am I living my life now in accordance with what I just said is the most important thing? Because when I do this with adults, you're all adults, but I do this when they can talk to me back, because we have time, most of the time it's family. Most of the time it's family. And then I say to them, how many minutes today did you speak to your children? And that's if I'm being nice. If I'm not being nice, I would say to them, how many seconds today did you speak to your children? Because you don't speak to your children. Because you get up early in the morning. So if you're pious, you run to Minyan, and then from Minyan you grab the train to go into the city, or you jump into the shower, you jump out of the shower, you grab the train, and the kids are still sleeping because you're a very busy guy. You got to get in for the 7 a.m. meeting. And then you're busy all day, and then by the time you come home, the kids are sleeping. So the average American speaks to their children 11 minutes a week. So I'm going to say it again because you don't believe me. You don't believe me. The average American speaks to their kids 11 minutes a week. So who are you kidding when you write down that the most important thing in life is family? You're a phony. Put down money. Oh, now you're talking. Now you're talking. I get it. Now there's a confluence between what you consider to be most important and the way you spend your time. Rabbi Soloveitchik tells us what he considered to be the most important thing in life. I mean, wouldn't that be sweet if you walked right in? Hi, Rabbi, how you doing? It's JJ. I want to ask you a question. What do you think the most important thing in life is? Now, it doesn't mean that I have to agree, but I would be curious to know what Rabbi Soloveitchik thought the most important thing in life is, and I don't have to be so curious because he told me. Here it is, next sentence. I learned from my mother the most important thing in life: to feel the presence of the Almighty and the gentle pressure of his hand resting upon my frail shoulders. So think about that for a second. The most important thing in life is to feel the presence of God. What is the worst thing in life is to feel alone. The worst thing in life is to feel alone. What does it mean to be alone? I mean, mamish. Here it goes again, mamish. It's really alone. I mean, it's horrible. Nobody cares about me. Nobody's interested in me. Nobody inquires about my welfare. Nobody worries about me. Nobody supports me. I'm all alone. What is the way not to be alone? The most profound way not to be alone. So we try not to be alone because we have friends, we have communities, we have families. But those are people. And people sometimes don't last. So I have a good friend, and the friend moves away to Dallas. So I'm done. I don't have my good friend anymore. Or I was married, and it didn't work out, and we split. I invested a ton into this relationship, and we're done. Or my parents were my biggest cheerleaders, and they became 95, and they died. And now I don't have them. We invest a lot in people, and we need to invest a lot in people, but at the end of the day, that's not the surefire way how to not feel alone. The surefire way how to not feel alone is, if you can muster this, is to feel God. Because God doesn't go away, God doesn't upset you, God doesn't reject you. If you feel, and look at the formulation, the gentle pressure of his hand resting upon my frail shoulders. So this is the goal of my life, to feel this. I try to feel it when I'm davening, when I'm praying, because when I'm praying, I'm actually trying to talk to God. So like I'm already we got like a thing going, right? We got like, we're in the zone. It's me and God. I say you. I talked about that earlier. I say you to God. But it's very rare that I really feel inspired and I feel God's hand once in a while. And when that happens, I feel like, wow, what a gift. That I feel connected to God. And it's a work in progress. And Rabbi Soloveitchik says that that's the most important thing, and that is in addition to the formal compliance with the law. Without her teachings, which quite often were transmitted to me in silence, I would have grown up a soulless being, dry and insensitive. He was a pious Jew. Like he ate the matzah and he shook the lulav and he twirled the tefillin, and he was like, he checked all the boxes. Well, yeah, that's great. That's nice. But dry and insensitive. What can we do to make ourselves not dry and sensitive when we do mitzvot? And if we make that a priority, as hard as it is to accomplish, that to me is the pathway to get into living a life of mitzvah. And it's easier for me to live a life of mitzvah when it means something to me, when it enhances me, when it makes my life more meaningful. So I'm ready to go through the door when I'm not just feeling like I'm giving something up, but I feel like I'm getting something humongously meaningful and significant. On those rare occasions, halavai, they should happen. Halavai means I wish it would happen more often. When I feel God's presence, I mean, that's worth everything in the world. And that's what makes it easier for me to follow Robert Cover and say it's not about rights. It's about obligation. On the right-hand side, I just want to read you one sentence. He comes back to this idea again in a different talk that he gave after the fourth line, after the underline on the top. There are two aspects to the religious gesture in Judaism. Right, so before, in the previous text, he talked about formal compliance with the law, and the law is a religious experience. Here he says, there are two aspects to the religious gesture in Judaism: strict objective discipline, which is analogous to formal compliance with the law, and then look at how he describes feelings. And exalted, subjective, what's the next word? Romance. I couldn't believe it the first time I read this. My experience of romance is it has to do with a woman and a man and a woman. And you go out on a date, and then you go out on the fourth date, and by the ninth date, you're already fluttering a little bit. You're beginning to feel something, and it's going in the right direction, and you begin to feel what? Romantic feelings. What's a romantic feeling? I love you, I want to be with you, you mean so much to me, I don't want to be without you, I can't wait till I see you again. Here's a present that I bought for you. The romance. A romance is between a woman and a man and a woman. And Rabbi Soloveitchik says, guess what? A romance is between us and God. I can't figure that out. You know, you like hug God and kiss God and give God a present. What do you mean romance? So it's aspirational to me. Romance in connection with God. That's called having a feeling, a living experience. And it's hard to cultivate, but it's worth working on because there is value at the end. I don't know where I am time-wise, but I have a feeling that I'm overstaying my welcome. So I want to conclude. I want to conclude, and I want to share with you something about Hanukkah. Is that okay if I conclude? Okay. Yeah, time to conclude. Hanukkah is coming up in a week, like now, right? It's next Wednesday night is the first night of Hanukkah. There is a very famous question, a very super famous question that is asked repeatedly in the context of the holiday of Hanukkah. And that question is, anybody want to take a shot? The question, yes. Why do we celebrate the miracle for 8 days if, after all, It should be 7. Why should it be 7? Because, after all, there was enough oil to last for one day. Extra Hanukkah present for this young lady, Rabbi Watts. Extra Hanukkah present. Lollipop. I don't know if you're into lollipops, but the proverbial lollipop. Right, you hear the question? We celebrate Hanukkah for 8 days because of the miracle of the lights. Well, the miracle of the lights was really only 7 days. Why do we celebrate Hanukkah for 8 days? The first night wasn't a miracle. So I want to give you 2 answers. And I want you to think about them and to try them on for your own personal lives. The first answer is, I think. So you should know that many years ago I was in Jerusalem in the Mea She'arim neighborhood, which is a very Haredi neighborhood, which has a lot of bookstores. And I came in and I saw a book called Ner Lamea. Ner Lamea means there are 100 answers to this question. A couple of years later, I came back to the same bookstore, 300 answers to this question. And not very long ago, I went back in as a fat book, 500 answers to this question. So I'm not going to give you all 500. I'm going to tell you the 2 that I think are most profound for me, and maybe for you. First answer is, we celebrate on the first night the fact that they found the cruse of oil. Who said they had to find it? There was a big balagan. You know what a balagan is? There was a big mess in the temple. Everything was impure. Everything was a wreck. And over here, under a little thing in a corner, they found 1 cruse of oil. The fact that they found it is a miracle. And how do I understand it? The blessings that we have are under our noses. What's our job? To find them. We don't have to look very far for the blessings in our lives. I'm telling you, I don't know you, but I'm telling you, they're under your nose. You need to open up your eyes and see them and appreciate them. Your spouses, your friends, your family, MJE, your community. It's a huge bracha. It's right here. The blessing of your life is right here. The nest, the miracle of Hanukkah, the first night, is, oh my God, it was right under my nose and I saw it. So let's think about what's under our noses that we can appreciate as a source of blessing for us. The second one is as follows. You see, sometimes when you ask a question, it's a good question, and then you give an answer, and either it's a good answer or not a good answer. In this case, the whole question is a fallacy. The whole question is a fallacious question. What's the question? After all, there was enough to light for one night, so that's not a miracle, and it stayed another 7 nights. What? Well, if you light oil, that's not a miracle? If I had water in that cruse, and I stick in a wick, and I take a candle, and I light the candle, and I stick it on the thing, what would happen? Nothing. If I had vinegar in there, nothing. Oh my God, oil, lights. So we call it nature. This morning, it got light outside. So we're assume that every day it's going to get light, and it is going to get light every day, and that's the natural world. But what do we say in our morning prayer service? I'll say it in Hebrew and translated. HaMachadesh betuvo, b'chol yom tamid, ma'aseh v'reishis. God every day recreates creation. Just because it happens doesn't mean that it's not a miracle. And so my takeaway is we should appreciate the miracles. Appreciate the miracles in our life and not take anything for granted. We take a lot for granted, and then when we don't get what we take for granted, we get upset. It's a miracle that I got up this morning. You know, there are people who did not get up this morning. And we're going to read about some funeral tomorrow of somebody who we know who didn't get up this morning. We got up this morning. That's like amazing that we got up this morning. We just assume we're going to get up until we're not going to get up. We assume our parents are going to get up in the morning until they don't get up in the morning. Because we just assume it's going to happen, and all of a sudden we get whacked in the head because they didn't get up. Oh my God. Not everybody has to get up in the morning. People don't get up in the morning. Things light, other things don't light. Never to take anything for granted. The first lesson of Hanukkah is your blessing is under your nose. Just be wise enough to open up your eyes and find it, and define it, and call it. And maybe if you decide that someone is that blessing, talk to them. Tell them, you're a blessing in my life. You are a blessing in my life. You're under my nose. I wake up with you every morning. That's amazing. Thank you. I decided that you're like a real blessing to me, and I want to thank you. The second lesson of Hanukkah is don't take anything for granted. Appreciate the miracle for it being a miracle. It's a miracle. Those of us who can have children, it's a miracle. Isn't that a miracle? It's like psychotically a miracle. To have children, to create children. Not everybody has children. If you can have a child, it's a miracle. And so appreciate the miracle, whatever the miracle may be. It's been an honor to be here this evening. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Michael. I wish all of you a happy Hanukkah, and I wish you all.
If anybody has any questions
I don't want to hold everything
for the rabbi,
if anybody wants to leave.
if anybody wants to leave, you can certainly do that. If anybody would like to ask any questions to Rabbi Schacter. Just want to mention also that next Wednesday, I know it's another great holiday, some other people's holiday, but we're going to be celebrating Hanukkah here, and in 2 Wednesdays we're going to be having our Hanukkah party as well, and of course services Friday night at 5:30 and Shabbat morning at 9:30. Any questions for Rabbi Schacter, please?
Yeah.
My question is, you mentioned like feeling God and feeling God's presence. What's a good way to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. What's a good way how to feel God's presence? To try to feel God's presence. You decide yourself what you can do, how you can order your life and structure your behavior and your value system to live in accordance with what you believe is God's will. And then I think over the course of time you'll feel God's presence. Yeah.
Do you believe in co-creating alongside with God?
What does that mean? What does co-creating mean?
Like being like God and actually like what you think is what will be kind of stuff?
I don't believe that what I think is what will be. I'm a puny nothing. Well, how do I know what's going to be? When I have a child, I'm co-creating with God. The Talmud tells us there are 3 partners in a child: the mother, the father, and God. So I feel like I'm co-creating with God, helping to propagate the world. But I'm a puny schmendrick nobody. Just because I think something doesn't mean anything. Anybody else? On that, yes, Beth.
You're such a learned rabbi.
Thank you.
I've never sat next to or met a rabbi and say, do you know Rabbi Schacter? They say, oh, Rabbi Schacter. Doesn't matter, Orthodox, Reformed, anywhere in the world.
Thank you.
It's really true. And I was wondering how, because you're so learned and you're so admired, it's hard to almost fathom that you have thoughts of doubt.
Yeah. Yeah, because what does one have to do with the other? I think primarily I would say I'm human. And so my humanness is limited. And sometimes I feel more successful in my relationship with God and doing mitzvot, and sometimes I feel less successful. So I want to be honest, and I want to be human, and I think that's the best that we could do. And maybe if more rabbis would admit that they're honest and human, maybe others would fit that bill, which you so graciously bestowed upon me. Yeah.
What do you think it is that makes it hard for us to see the miracles that are right in front of us every day?
Because I think we take them for granted. I don't think we see them as miracles. I think we see them as normal, like sunrise. We don't see sunrise as a miracle because it happens every day. We don't see light, electricity, because it happens all the
But do you
time.
think it's like, I don't know, the Yetzirah or something within us that...
No, I don't think it's something negative in us. I think it's something human. I think it's our humanness that says, I know sun is gonna come up tomorrow. It may be rainy, it may be overcast. So it's not a miracle, it's gonna happen. I think it's part of our human condition. It's not coming from a bad place, it's coming from a human place. But I think every once in a while it's helpful to be reminded, oh my God, wait a minute. It's amazing that it's light. It's amazing that I woke up this morning. I really want you to lean into that. It's amazing that I woke up this morning. It's like amazing that I woke up. Why did I wake up? I woke up. I had a good night's sleep, not such a good night's sleep. I woke up. Wow. So if you see it that way, that means, and I mentioned this earlier in the other room in a beautiful conversation with incredible people, that means that I woke up for a reason. The reason being that I should do something meaningful today. I didn't wake up so I should futz around and just waste my time or not be nice. I woke up because God thought that I could do something meaningful. That's why I woke up. So let's do something meaningful. So tomorrow, you're on. You'll get my email address from Rabbi Wilds. You'll tell me what you did meaningful tomorrow. I would love to hear from you. What's your name? So I'll remember. Yair. Okay, Yair. We're in, yes.
Rabbi Schacter, you may remember back in 1998, I lost my dad.
Mark.
Yes.
Oh my God, Mark Karstad.
Exactly. So you were the rabbi of the Jewish Center at the time.
Oh my God, Mark, how are you?
Personally very difficult
Oh
time.
my God.
It also taught me to daven for the Ahmed. And so I was able to say Kaddish for my dad for the year. So since then, I'm happy to say that I daven 3 times a day. I'm meticulous. I think pedantic in some ways, but I think this has given me an opportunity to ask you a question which I didn't get a chance to ask you in recent years is how do you maintain your sort of kavana on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah.
Because I find the things
Oh God, yeah, right.
Wake up early, go Schacter, do whatever I've got to do in at Minyan, some tzedakah and work.
Right.
There's mincha maariv, and it's
Wow, Mark, first of all, it's really nice to see you again. I remember 30 years ago? When did your dad die? How long ago? 30 years ago. Wow. So I'll tell you what I do. Is this being recorded? It's being recorded. I skip half of davening. I don't say every word. Because it's impossible for me to say every word. The Shulchan Aruch, the Code of the Jewish Law says, and I'm going to say it in Hebrew and translate it, Tov ma'at b'kavana, meharbe b'li kavana. Better say a little with intention than a lot without intention. So the synagogue that I go to has 4 different services on Shabbat morning. There's a Hashkama Minyan, the 7 o'clock early one. Then there's an 8:30 one, and then there's an 8:45 one, and a 9 o'clock one. 8:45 to 9 or 8:30 is like right in the middle. Why? Because it's a COVID minyan, and after COVID they were done with long davening, so they're in and out in an hour and a quarter. I'm going to say it again because I can't believe it. Right? By the time you come in, if you come in 6 minutes late, they're up to Kriyat Shema. Like it's not happening. So I don't go to that minyan, I can't. I don't even keep up with a regular, normal minyan. It's too fast for me. And if I find myself trying to catch up, that doesn't mean anything to me. So I skip. So I would suggest there are certain parts of the tefillah that we are, quote, required. Baruch she'amar, ashrei, yishtabach. For those of you who are familiar with that. The rest, that's great. You can say it. Big check in the sky. You can't say it? Okay. But at least what you do say, you say with intention. And you know what? You come across a word, and you stop for a second, you think about it. Next sentence. And then there are 7 paragraphs ahead. So be it. I can't accept just saying for the sake of saying. That's not my religion. My religion is a romance. And if it's a romance, it means that I need to be all into this relationship, which means I got to be feeling a connection. I want to understand what I'm saying. So there are some days where I end up saying more, some days saying less, but I can't say every word. Because then it's a race. So what have I accomplished? I believe that God wants us to be real. To be human, God does not want us to be magical. To be human means it takes time to think about things. So let's think about them. What I often do is I alternate. So today I'll say the first Yahalelu-ka, and then tomorrow I'll say the next one. So by the time 2 weeks go by, I'm pretty much covered with the prayer book. It takes me 2 weeks to finish the davening. Okay, you know what? I'll explain it to God after 120, and God will say, JJ, you didn't daven. I say, God, do me a favor, you understand. And God is going to say, free pass, you're good to go. Up to heaven. That's what God is going to say. That's what I believe. I think that's really the key point, is to be real. And not to be magical, not to be unreal. To be real means we're human, and we're human, which means that we struggle. And that was Tibet's question, that I struggle because I'm human. And sometimes it's easier, and sometimes it's not easier. If it was always easy, I wouldn't be human. I would be a robot. I'm not a robot. So I try my best. And I invite you to try your best. To be honest with yourselves. And to be authentic. I think maybe that's the word I'm looking for, to be authentic. Authentic human being and authentic one who serves God. Anything else? Yes?
We were talking about Sheilaism.
Yeah.
And how that's basically the dominant way of life and way of thought in American Western culture. What do you think is the best argument to somebody, because you were talking about how you met with your Harvard colleague and did not go down the observant path that you did.
Yeah.
What do you think is the best argument to somebody who feels like religion is not necessary?
Come to my house for Friday night dinner.
All of us?
You're already drinking the Kool-Aid.
Do you mean his house? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think. You know better than me, or you know as much as I do, that Shabbat is magical. And it doesn't have to be the Dvar Torah. It's the singing, it's the community, it's the camaraderie, it's the respect, it's the values. You can't convince someone logically, but you can have a path into their heart emotionally. It's not the formal compliance with the law. It's the law as a experience. It's the romance. Let me show you my romance with Shabbat. And just to watch it. MJE, that's a story of MJE. Watch Shabbat. No preaching, no speeches. Come to the table and let's be together. And And that's where I would start. Yeah.
If someone has very little free time on their hands,
Yes.
and they want to feel a real connection to Hashem for whatever reason, would you recommend Chesed or learning Torah?
So my first question would be to ask yourself, why do you have such free little time to do anything? What is so important to you that you have no time?
Nothing for me.
No, of course not. My friend asked me to ask you. Not. No, I'm good. I learn Torah all day. Some guy I met in the subway asked me to ask you. So the first thing I would ask that person, Chas v'shalom, is why are you ordering your life now that you don't have time to do things that are valuable to you? Is Chesed important to you? To the guy? Is Torah important? So why not? Why not? So I'm questioning the fundamental assumption of the question. And I think that goes back to the most important thing in life is. So if the most important thing in life includes Chesed and Torah, so make it happen. It's not a zero-sum game. They're not mutually exclusive. There is time during the day when you could do Chesed and Torah. Okay? Whatever it is, you'll find it. Figure out what is important to you. You're smart people. What is important to you? And then go for it. Figure out a way. If Torah is important to you, figure out a way how you could study Torah more. Take another class at MJE, go online, go somewhere. There's a lot of Torah going around on the internet. So there's good stuff. Chesed is important to you, so go volunteer in a soup kitchen. It doesn't have to be a chesed for Jews, it could be a chesed for non-Jews. When I was a rabbi here, I don't know if we still do it, but I used to go every Wednesday to B'nai Jeshurun, which is like down the block. Every Wednesday they had a lunch program for the homeless. And I would go and put on an apron and roll up my sleeves and ladle soup for homeless. Because I felt that chesed is important. And chesed is important not only for Jews. We're living in a neighborhood. So you find time to do it. I was a busy guy. I found time to do it. Decide what's important to you. I mean existentially important. Not someday when I'm retired and then I'm going to have... No, tomorrow. Like what are you waiting for? Do it. Decide it. Fill in the blank after the most important thing in life is. And go for it. You can make it happen. There's nothing that you cannot do if you want to do it. Nothing. I'm going to say it again. There is nothing that you cannot do if you want to do it. Are we done or we're not done yet? One last question. Yes. Oh, okay. Yes. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for your beautiful words.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
I spoke to you on the way in.
Yes, you did. It was a pleasure. Yes.
See you for this.
Right. And I said if I don't answer it, you should ask me again.
See you answered it.
Good. Baruch Hashem. I answered it.
I thought it was very relevant for an in-betweener like myself. And just in the context of Shabbos and Kavanah, the same way you described, omitting some of the davening, in order to, a little bit of Kavanah is better than, a lot of prayer with lack of intention. I'm just wondering what your advice is for me, and I'm sure, it's relatable for a number of other people here. I've been doing my best to keep Shabbos for the last 6 weeks. There was a couple times where I came to MJE late, took the bus, doing my best, and there's a number of Shabboses in the near future that I see, posing an issue. I'm gonna next Shabbos I'll be with my family on a trip, and my family's very secular family. I imagine we'll be going out for dinner that night. My question is there a place within Shabbos? Obviously, there's the 39 laws of Shabbat. Is there a place within Shabbos for a growing Jew to have that same flexibility as you have in davening, or is that?
Yeah, I hear the question. Let me tell you a story. There is a great rabbi at Yeshiva University where I teach, who happens to share my same last name. His name is Schacter. My name is Schacter. He has a second H. S-C-H-A-C-H, so it's a ch, mine is a k. My father dropped the second H. So he's like a big, big rabbi. I was once standing next to, Herschel Schacter is his name. I was once standing next to him, and a young kid who was becoming closer to traditional Judaism. Yeshiva University has a program for students who come who are not observant, but who are on a journey and beginning a journey. And I was standing next to Rabbi Schacter, and this kid says to him, a high school kid, he says, Rabbi, I have a friend who I want to invite to my house, but I know he's going to drive to come to my house. So can I invite him to come to my house? And Rabbi Schacter said, and here's my answer to your question, a half Shabbos is better than no Shabbos. Okay, so think about that. A half Shabbos is better than no Shabbos. Whatever you could do, that's what you should do. And the next week, you'll do more. You can't flip it in a second because it's not authentic. God wants us to be human. It is not human to all of a sudden be fully Shomer Shabbat in 6 minutes. It's not human. It's not normal. It's actually a problem. I would think something's wrong. Like you're deep diving in, you're flying in, there's something not quite grounded. It's a process. A half Shabbos is better than no Shabbos. Respect a half Shabbos. And next week it'll be 60% Shabbos and 62.5% Shabbos. And maybe the next week it'll be 55% Shabbos. And then it'll be 70% Shabbos. You're a human being. You're on a journey. Kadosh Baruch Hu should give you a bracha to continue the journey. I envy you. What a bracha. Keep going. You're doing great. Everybody have a... Wait, there's more.
Just before we finish up, my brother just wants to say just a parting word, and you're all invited to some refreshments. Refreshments outside, and there'll be a mara if anybody wants to join in this room.
Thank you, Rabbi Schacter. I didn't know there were 2 H's at one point. For those following the Wilds journey and watching this online, this was a very special year for us as we regale the 29th anniversary of our mom's passing. It wasn't shadowed in any way by our father's loss. My brother and I just finished saying Kaddish, and in many ways, I know that we both felt the hand of God on our shoulders. And in great part, it's because of the living experience that our parents made Shabbos for us. They were the exemplars of everything that the wonderful rabbi spoke of. The romance that we saw in their household set the model for what we would have in our home. Our parents loved bringing God into their lives and into our home. Shabbos started on Tuesday. Wednesday, the menus and the invitations. Thursday, she would hit the store. Friday, we had to get dressed by 1 in the afternoon, ready to go to shul. There was the discipline, because in our house, a Yankee had met and married a Yeki. And there was a regalement for that beautiful blend that we got in YU, which was Torah Mada. The professionalism and the good name. I still see my father's Shem Tov coming out of the desk, his desk that I have the zchut of using now. In many ways, that hand of God was indelibly a gift from our parents. We named 2 grandchildren, our children named 2 grandchildren these last months after our father. And I happen to think that we have the best advocates right now with the Eibishter, with God. All I can say is my brother is to be thanked and lauded for having personally created each of these last 29 sessions with the likes of not only you starting it, but Rabbi Sachs, Zichron Bracha, Ellen Dershowitz, Nat Lewin, luminaries of our time and generation, all celebrating that expanding Shabbos table that they had the privilege of seeing, eating, and memorializing. it's so important that we support what Mark's doing, because with one chicken and one Friday night, you're going to open up an entire world. And I think that was so artful what Rabbi Soloveitchik wrote and spoke at a Mechutin's event, that there was a living experience that he felt at his own life. And it doesn't matter if you're the one who's doing it routinely or with discipline, or if it's coming from a heart, a sense of romance, the feeling or the smell. It all has the same impact. And we have a short span of time in a post-October 7 world to share that scent. This is the place in New York. Your home is the launching pad for the next generation. I want to thank everybody for honoring our parents, but the best way to honor your own families is to support my brother and his efforts too. God bless. Thank you.